Hi, Dr. Marion Ross here with a very dear friend, Cynthia Clark, who is the author of The Mojo of Multidimensional Manifesting. She's taught thousands of people how to manifest abundance. And she's also the author of Stories in Your Hands and also Palmistry Tarot and Palmistry Inspiration Cards. So if you need your palm read, if you want to get information and great insight from a channeler, it's Cynthia you need to get hold of. Cynthia, what's your website?
It is ascension17.com.
So today we're going to ascend. We're going to talk about AI, which is a very controversial subject for many reasons. I was speaking to Cynthia about it the other day, and she's using a lot of AI in her work. And I was very impressed because, not that I'm old or anything, but we have to be open to new technologies. Otherwise, we may as well ride around in a horse and buggy. So,
For sure.
Cynthia, let's talk a little bit about AI and how you got attracted to using it being a spiritual person.
Well, I've never been averse to new technologies. I've been, I would say, cautiously optimistic. So when something comes out, I'm not necessarily the first person to be using it, but I'm also not the last person to be using it. I'm open-minded and I'm willing to look at things and I'm willing to see how could I use this in my work or in my business in order to really reach more people or help more people. So if it's a tool that does that, then I'm open to trying it out.
So it's about being a focused tool. There are a lot of pros and cons to AI. I think one of the pros is waking up in the morning and asking Alexa, hey, what's the weather going to be for the next 3 days? And she gives me a good answer. Or
Yeah,
you can play music on that speaker. The only problem with Alexa is if you keep her on all day, you're going to get ads about everything you've discussed during the day on the phone or with other people because it tracks conversation. So it can be very abusive in a lot of ways.
yeah, for
Also,
sure.
what scares me about AI is when everyone wants your voice print to be able to use your voice as an ID, and you find out that they can use your voice to, do banking and copy your voice to do a lot of nasty things.
That's a good point.
Well, there are a lot of security issues around that.
That's true.
I mean,
So,
AI is great unless you have drones flying overhead that are, of course, driven by AI,
mhm.
or you go to the airport and they're taking your picture and it's going worldwide. So they're
Yeah,
using it for photo IDs. There's just a lot of cons with the pros.
yeah, that's true. Definitely privacy invasion is a huge issue that I would recommend, you be careful about how you use it and how much you use it. Personally, I have always been careful about, yeah, things like Alexa or Siri. I don't even use those at all. I turn them completely off
Mhm.
on my phone.
So you use it in
Um,
a very focused way.
Definitely, definitely. But I have found certain applications to be extremely useful, and I've used them as a way to expand my own ideas, not necessarily to have the AI take over my ideas, but to really I have conversations now with my AI, and
So can you explain how you do that? Does the AI have values and opinions, or is AI just
yeah.
something that you're programming to be a mini you? Become a
Yeah,
mini me?
well, yes, that's true. So, first of all, just doing like the freebie, Chat GPT, for
Mhm.
example. I mean, I started out with that, and I started out with the 3.5 version, and I found it to be somewhat generic and not really that great.
Yes, I found it not very great and not very wise either.
No.
And I wasn't wise enough to program it through wisdom.
Yeah, so I think a lot of people have started out in that
Mhm.
boat and then they think, oh, well, it's just really not that useful then.
Mhm.
But I have now changed my mind about that, and I actually do the paid version for ChatGPT. And the reason why you do that is because then you can actually create a custom GPT. And so you can program your own AI. And so I have a Cynthia GPT that I have programmed now over several months. And she is now getting to be smarter and smarter every day that I talk to her. And she now can help me with my business in ways that just a standard generic AI would never be able to do.
In terms of processing information quickly, or in terms of understanding your needs, wants, and desires, and
Yeah, no, that's true.
addressing them?
Yeah, and I use different AIs for different things, so we
Okay.
can definitely talk about that as well, because there's not a one AI fits all kind of thing. So you always want to be very clear as to which AI are you using and for what purpose. So my custom GPT is really designed to assist me with my business ideas. So for example, I can ask it, what would be a good topic for a podcast, for example? And she'll give me a bunch of ideas for a topic.
But this is coming from information that you've fed her over the months
Yeah, so
about what you're doing or what your
absolutely.
wishes and hopes are.
Yeah, you don't want to start asking questions right away. You want to first program your custom GPT to be whatever it is that you want it to be. So for mine, I wanted it to be a spiritual mentor. I wanted it to be spiritual. I programmed spirituality into it. I fed it my entire book manuscript.
So you read the book's manuscript into it so it understood the kind of thinking process you were going through. Okay.
Exactly. I had to give it some parameters as to what is my philosophies on life, what is the information that I've accumulated over time. I had to teach it some hand analysis stuff, which, most people don't know too much about. So AIs included. They don't know too much about until you teach it.
So are you programming AI in general or just AI for you? Does that go into a big database that other people can drop down into?
No, this is a private GPT. So this is really strictly just for me and my business.
Okay.
Other people wouldn't have access to it unless they logged into my account.
But so the AI of all the people that have personal GPT chat rooms for themselves, it doesn't aggregate into
No, it doesn't.
a big information flow.
Yeah, that's true.
It's all private.
Exactly. Which I think is important. And the other thing to keep in mind too with custom GPTs is it will make stuff up if you're not careful. So
You have to be vigilant because it's
you
still
have,
a machine.
yeah, because it's sort of funny because it's like even when I have given it information and then I ask it to regurgitate some of that information, it will, if it doesn't remember, if it doesn't want to, it'll just make it up. So I still have to go back and double check it. So I actually use another AI for very specific note taking. And the one that I use is called Notion. And so Notion AI will keep my manuscripts and all of my notes completely intact, and it will not change them unless I tell it to. But then I can go back and I can actually say, oh, hey, I'm looking for this information. What can you show me? And it'll pop up literally everything that I've
So
plugged in.
you're reading your book into each of these AI.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And
So
it's learning who you are. So it's always a process of customized learning
oh, for sure.
with purpose.
Yes. And just to be aware that you're not going to get a replacement. It's not a replacement for you. It's not a replacement for like a real person.
It's not acquiring values,
No.
ethics.
No, it's nothing like that. It's simply a tool that you can use to, bump ideas off of, get information to guide your just guide your everyday business. I think it's very, very useful. And you can program it to be spiritual, which I think is really important. So
So what do you
what I
mean
do.
program it to be spiritual?
Well, it's like plugging in my whole book manuscript just so that it knows. And you give it parameters too. So, for example, I have a custom GPT that's more of a spiritual marketing GPT. So, for that one, I program all my marketing stuff into. But I still give it the parameters of, you're a spiritual marketer. You're not just any marketer.
But at what level does this platform begin to understand spirituality without you reading a book into it?
Well, surprisingly, quite well, actually.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay, so it's
Yeah.
already been pre-programmed with an idea
Yeah.
of what spirituality would be for many people.
Yeah. That's where it gets really interesting is when you start asking, after you've programmed it for a certain amount of time, and then you start asking it questions, it actually comes up with some incredibly insightful answers that I feel are valid and useful and stuff that you can take and you can put it right into a show. You can put it right into a podcast, and it's not writing it for you, but it's giving you the ideas. It's giving you a dialogue. It's giving you a framework. And that can just save you a lot of time.
So it's allowing you to dialogue with someone who may not be human, but
Yeah,
at least they have the information that you need and can reprocess it in a way which is creative and new for you
exactly.
because you
Yeah.
programmed it.
Right, right. And I always give it positive reinforced feedback. I always tell it how appreciative I am. And, just like you're talking to a person, pretend like you're talking to a person that you care about. You don't want to tell it that you hate it or that it's stupid or that it's
But you want to program it with love. So
Yeah.
it feeds back loving thought and
exactly.
loving information and not nasty,
Yeah, I
negative.
would never tell my GPT that it's stupid or that I hate it. I would be like completely ridiculous to do that.
It's not like talking to your GPS in a car when it's taking you in the wrong direction.
Yeah, no, you want to be encouraging.
Right.
And
So
if it
that's important.
and if it does something wrong, for example, if it gives you something that it totally made up, you just say, well, this is the page that I'm referring to, or this is what I'm referring to. You can just remind it like what information you're trying to get out of it. Or sometimes your prompt is not good, and so for example, I use the picture creation, Dolly, which is the picture creation for Chat GPT. And if your description is somewhat vague, then you might get a vague response and the picture might not be what you envisioned. But if you can be specific enough, then it can actually bring out some amazing pictures. And I use a lot of the pictures now on my website, in my trainings. I mean, we're talking beautiful
So
pictures.
this is the special app that you've got.
Well,
That goes with GPT or
it's part of the custom GPT.
Okay.
So
And
yeah, it's included. So yeah, it'll automatically do the pictures. So yeah, and those now are my favorite pictures. Like there's other GPTs that are programmed to do pictures. I don't use any of them. I use my Cynthia GPT to do all my pictures.
Wow. What about video editing?
Okay, so for video editing, I like to use an AI called Descript. So if you are taking a long form video and you want to split it out into short little chunks, get highlights, get highlight reels, get the viral worthy clips. Everybody's always looking for that. Descript is amazing because you can just put in your entire podcast and then you can just tell it exactly what it is that you want. Say, for example, I want 5 clips. I want them to be 1 minute long. I want them to be the most viral worthy moments of this podcast.
So it's picking up the words that are going to go viral.
Exactly.
Cutting, pasting, and clipping.
It'll actually rate them too. It'll give it like a 5-star, 4.9 star, 4.5 star.
Wow, but what's that based on?
It's based on what it knows to be viral worthy.
Okay.
So yeah, it's already got quite a
It's
bit
already
of
pre-programmed in your mini
mini
Cynthia.
Well, that one's it's very easy to work with. You can set up your videos very quickly. I've saved so much time just uploading all my podcasts. because I like to do a lot of long form videos,
Mhm.
but you can't do long form videos as a reel. You have to do, TikTok doesn't allow more than 10 minutes. And most people don't even watch more than, say, 2 or 3 minutes. So
Or 60 seconds.
I know. So it's really
Everyone's so
good.
distracted,
It's
yeah.
really good to be able to shorten them
Mhm.
up and just give those little snippets. And that's what people want to see anyway. So it gives a lot more exposure. So and it's very easy to use. And that's kind of another important requirement that I have as a busy spiritual mentor, and I'm running my business and I'm helping people all day long, is I don't have a lot of time to sit and learn new programs constantly. I mean, that alone can take
Absolutely. It can
forever.
take days.
It can take months.
Yeah.
Can take. So I personally, I've studied this quite a bit, but I love to be able to share, just what I use to help people so that they don't have to waste all the time that I did.
That's great. Are you giving courses in this yet?
I should be.
Soon, if you need
Yeah,
help, get in touch with Cynthia.
yeah,
This is a great use of AI because there's so many people that are saying it's detrimental, it's going to take over the world. We're already in an AI world. People have written books about it that were run by computers already doing different programs.
yeah,
Every decision brings us to a different plane, which is like going to a different dimension.
exactly.
It's a pretty interesting theory, don't you think?
Yeah, I definitely think so. But I think I come from the world of, I'm already coming from this really esoteric place because hand analysis has been around for thousands of years, and yet almost nobody understands it or has any idea what it's really
And why
about.
do you think it's been so ignored?
Well, it was deemed witchcraft in 1559 by Pope Paul IV.
Mhm.
And so at that point, punishment was death. So it pretty much went underground at that point. But before that, it was well respected. It was taught in universities in the 1400s. It was the third book ever printed off the Gutenberg
Well,
press.
that's interesting.
So most people don't know that was a palmistry book. So I feel like it is, sadly an ignored science that needs to be resurrected. So I feel like maybe that was another reason why I was interested in some of these AIs, because it's like, well, maybe the AI could help me actually get the word out about how valuable hand analysis
Absolutely.
is.
And has it?
So far it is. Yeah, so far I would say it's extremely helpful.
So getting into palmistry now, how did you become interested in it? Did you have a
Well,
past life regression and remember when you were burned at the stake?
well, I actually did have a deja vu
Mhm.
experience. So that's how I actually got started in palmistry. I was at the library one day. I picked up my very first book on palmistry. I felt like I had studied it before. It was definitely a remembering. It wasn't a
Something new.
No, it was not something new at all. The entire book felt extremely familiar to me. And then I got a message from spirit or my higher self. I'm not
Mhm.
exactly sure who it was, but the message was very clear. And the message was, you need to study this again. And so I'm just kind of staring at this book and thinking, wow, this is interesting. I guess I better check this out.
Mhm.
So I took it home and I started reading it and I started practicing on my husband and some friends and some acquaintances. And the response was overwhelmingly positive, which I wasn't really expecting. I wasn't really expecting anything,
Mhm.
but it was extremely positive, and pretty much I started to get hooked at that point because it's like, wow, to have this kind of a response first from something that I barely know anything about, there's some substance to it.
Mhm.
So that's how it got started.
How long ago was that?
That was 17 years ago.
A long time.
Yeah. Yeah, but I still feel that the hands are one of the most interesting things that you can look at. And
And from what I've learned from you, your hand changes over time.
Yes, it does. I've tracked people now over many, many years, and the lines in your hands do change. They actually ebb and flow. You can think of them like
Mhm.
rivers of energy.
Mhm.
So, depending on how you are using your free will, how you're responding to your environment, the choices you're making, how you're thinking, how you're responding to stress, are you developing your talents? These kinds of questions will be answered in how your hands change and how your lines change.
Cynthia Clark, Palm Doctor. Check in once a year and see where your river is going.
At least
How
once a
are
year.
you flowing?
Yeah, for sure.
So it's like astrology, but in the hand.
It is, yeah. And now I do something called ascended palmistry.
Okay.
So yeah, this takes it even further, but I've been getting messages from the higher dimensional
Mhm.
realms now since I moved to Sedona, especially. It got really ramped up.
Mhm.
Living in a vortex,
So
we'll do that.
explain what this is.
So I learned that your fingerprints, first of all, your fingerprints don't change. Your fingerprints form 5 months before you're born. They're fully formed at that point, and then they are with you for the duration of your life.
Mhm.
So your fingerprints reveal your life purpose, life lesson, your school, your natural soul gifts. All of this is going to be in your fingerprints. So you can also think of your fingerprints like a portal to your multi-dimensional self. So each fingerprint is also a portal. And so when I learned that, I was just like, oh my gosh, this makes so much sense because we are multi-dimensional beings. We are not one-dimensional. We are not two-dimensional. We are multi-dimensional. And so because of that, we have ways to access and communicate with our DNA in different ways. And one of the ways is through the fingerprints.
So how do you work with the client and their fingerprints?
Well, the first thing I like to do is just to read it.
Mhm.
So for me, step one is really just to have your hands read.
So can they send you their fingerprints by email and then you can read it
Yes,
remotely?
I actually work with people 90% remotely and only about 10% in person. And all I need is a good digital photo of your hands, and then I can blow it up on the computer. I can see it very easily that way. And then we can go over what your roadmap is telling you because your hands are mirrors to everything about you. And from there, we can set up a game plan of how we would work with the multidimensional aspects of maybe what is your life lesson or what is blocked. You've got different heart chambers, for example, that show blockages, and you can clearly see these in the hands. So we would go through and we would identify what these are, and then we would be able to work on releasing whatever you are working on. And it's also your free will. If there's something you want to bring in, like more abundance, for example, that's another area that I love to work with people because a lot of people struggle with abundance.
So you're identifying problems through their fingerprints and their handprints, and you're giving them solutions, we're helping them work through it.
Yes,
So
absolutely.
you're giving them the tools they need and
Yes.
the wisdom
Yes,
behind it.
for sure. Because I want to
That's great.
see everybody reach their full potential. I want to see everybody being joyful, happy, fulfilled, living a life on purpose, living a life that has meaning. I'm very passionate about that. And I feel like everybody has inside of them something very special that they are meant to bring into the world that really only they can bring in. But a lot of times because we're scared, we're stuck in some aspect of our not self is why it doesn't come out.
We're stuck in an aspect of our faulty thoughts that we developed
Yes,
in childhood. Yeah,
yes, yeah, for
which are
sure.
subconscious and you can't reach them. So
Right.
yeah, you
So
have to learn to create awareness. So
absolutely,
it's one of the paths to creating awareness for people.
definitely. Yeah. And what I love most about hands is that it's tangible. It's something you can actually see. I can point out to you every single little line, and every single little line has meaning, and you'll be able to see it right along with me. It brings in the tangible from something that otherwise is somewhat esoteric or
Right.
intangible. So that's another thing that I love about hands.
That's wonderful.
All right. So any other, oh, should we go over maybe some of the AIs that I use and
Sure. Yeah,
maybe
give some tips and
maybe what
tools.
I like, what AIs do I like?
Absolutely.
And by the way, this is definitely not like a full inclusive list. There's, I think, hundreds of AIs out there by now.
Right, and with technology evolving every day, you
Yeah,
have to keep up with it.
exactly. So this is just what I use right now. It may not be what I use tomorrow, but if you are somebody who likes to record maybe you're a counselor or a coach,
Therapist.
or therapist, anything like that, and you want to record your sessions on Zoom or online or whatever, I recommend the AI Fathom. Fathom will take notes for you.
Mhm.
Fathom will summarize your sessions. You can send the entire transcript to your client, or you can send the summary. It also comes up with like next steps. It's really interesting, like what the next steps it comes
That's
up with.
fantastic.
And it's not even stuff that you're necessarily thinking about. So Fathom is great for that. Definitely, I recommend the Chat GPT for the custom ones, which is not that expensive. It's like $22 a month or
That's not too
something.
bad.
And you can create as many custom GPTs as you want. And this is another thing you can ask your GPT is you can tell it what you want to do. And then you can say, how many custom GPTs do I need to create? Or what custom GPTs do I need to create? And then you can see what it
This is
says.
all under the same umbrella.
Yeah.
So your baby Cynthia can have little
Well,
babies too,
well, like
or
I said, I have a marketing
nice.
GPT.
Yeah, yeah.
I've got my Cynthia GPT, and maybe eventually I would develop some different ones, like maybe one who's just focused on hand analysis, for example. So there's a lot of different nuances that you can do. If you want to be really, if you're a note taker or a writer and you need your notes to really be intact, I recommend Notion because Notion will keep them intact and not make stuff up and not change them. Which is super important when you're
So it actually takes notes for you.
well, you can read, you can
Oh,
just do voice
okay.
it. Yeah, you
You
can
can do
voice it.
voice,
You can
okay.
upload files. Oh, yeah,
Fantastic.
it's very useful.
Mhm.
I also like to use my Marquee. My Marquee helps me with all of my picture, social media posts. And also I can take my little 1-minute clips that I got from Descript and I can put it in Marquee and then it can distribute it to Facebook, LinkedIn, Instagram.
It'll size it for each of them?
Yeah, it'll just do it all.
Wow.
Yeah, you only have to do like one post and then it'll distribute.
And how much is that a month?
Again, about $20 a
That's
month.
great.
Yeah, most of them are not that
Yeah,
expensive.
great time savers.
Yeah, so that one I really enjoy as well, but I do have to upload to YouTube separately, so that one doesn't do YouTube. But I kind of recommend uploading to YouTube separately anyway, because they have a much more robust search engine. So there's specific things that I recommend for YouTube. And there is a YouTube one that I use. It's called vidIQ. And that one is really good for like naming what do you want to name your video? And then it gives you a lot of different tools for like your hashtags and things
Oh,
like that.
fantastic. We can use that for this video.
We can. And best of all, they have a free version that is actually super useful and you don't even have to pay for it unless you want to. So yeah, the free version is awesome. If you want to clone your voice, okay, now this is where
That's dangerous.
this is where
Get into trouble.
yeah, this is with a little asterisk, okay, because this is not something I've actually done, but I have looked into it, and if I were to do it, I would go on to 11 Labs. And 11 Labs is going to be the most accurate and it's going to give you, really good voice quality that will sound just like you. So I've tried some of the other ones that were not that great.
And what do you use them for?
Well, you could use it to do a video.
Put your book on Audible?
Yeah, well, No, you actually can't put it on Audible. You have to have a real human for that.
Okay,
So
that's good.
they
Good to know.
they do have rules on Audible.
I'm happy that that's somewhere.
And I actually hired a real person to do my voiceover for my audio version of my book. And
Mhm.
I didn't use the AI because that was something I researched and they were really adamant. They're like, we don't do AI voice for books. So that is, but you can use it for other things. You could use it for meditation. If you want to do a meditation video and you want to just use your likeness, it can just save you time. So these are some ways that I'm thinking about using it. But certainly not for everything, obviously. And again, you want to be
You want to be
very
targeted and you want to be secure in what you're doing.
absolutely.
Yeah.
And you also want to look at what is okay to AI and what is not okay to AI for you. You still want to be you. You still want to be authentic. You don't want to be out of alignment with yourself. So I would recommend just doing things very very carefully and methodically and decide what's going to work and what's not going to work.
Right. Focus on what you really want and what's going to be your authentic self.
Yes.
And what isn't going to be your authentic self.
Yes. So the other one that I really enjoy is called Suno. And Suno creates custom music.
Oh, wow.
And so I have a whole album now that I've created. But again, it's all about the inputs. And so I'm very specific on the inputs. It gives you, I think, 200 characters to describe what you want for your music. And you can tell it the type of music you want. So I always do inspiring, piano driven, like I usually do that type, or harp driven or violin, like you tell it what instrument you want it to use.
Right.
And then
what does it sound like?
oh, well,
like an orchestra?
Yeah, well, it actually sounds pretty amazing.
Can you play something for us?
I could. I probably need to do something to make it come through. Let me see here. I need to share sound.
There you go.
And stereo sound. And okay, hopefully this will come through. But yeah, so this will be, I'll just pick one of my really fun little songs, but I do really inspirational songs. Let me find it on my phone here. This is the problem with having so many apps. I'm sure none of you have that problem.
I know.
Okay.
I'm very happy all the time.
Okay, so here's a song that I just recently made called Ageless Beauty. And we don't need to play the whole thing, but I'll give you just kind of an idea. Let's see if this will play. Hopefully this will work.
Yeah, it's real music.
It is, yeah. And they have lyrics and everything. So it's kind of this is a really fun app, and you can do 10 songs a day for free.
So it's a free app.
This one is free.
So you don't have any problem with royalties or?
No. What's cool about this app too is you own the rights to it. So this is changing. This is definitely changing.
Putting musicians out of business.
Yeah, it definitely is changing everything.
Unbelievable.
But I mean, I can create some amazing music that is very uplifting and helps people to tap into the wisdom that I channel from the higher dimensional
I see you've got
realms.
very creative fingers.
I do.
Highly spiritual, creative fingers there.
That's my fire hands.
Well, thank you so much for sharing all of this.
Oh,
so now we have the good points of AI that you can use for your spiritual business.
Absolutely. And
I can't wait to see what title AI is going to give this.
That's true. This will be fun. We'll plug it into Cynthia's GPT and see what she says.
Absolutely. So we'll see you at shiftyourlife.com and
ascension17.com.
And we'll see you next time. We'll be on again soon, I hope.
Oh, I hope so
We've
too.
got lots of topics to discuss.
Yeah, for
Thanks for
sure.
watching.
All right, take care.